Hi, this is Misha, and recently I posted a video on the Vz.58, kind of doing an update, and I thought might as well take a look at my CZ-805 Bren S1 Carbine here that I've made a few modifications to. Not many, but why not? Let's be honest, folks, SHOT Show this year was pretty underwhelming, so let's enjoy what we have. And also, I've got my CZ Bren 2S out. Earlier you saw all three barrel lengths in different videos, the 8, the 14, and the 11-inch. Well, the 14 went to a friend, the 8 went on Gunbroker, and I kept the 11. And until we get stocks, this is how it'll probably remain set up. And the idea behind both of these was to clone what the Czech military has been using for a number of years, at least in the case of the Bren 1. The version here is set up similar to a Bren 2A2. And this is set up pretty similar, with a little bit of personalization from myself, as a Bren 805 A1, including a 14-inch barrel, which is actually new to this gun. When you saw it before, it had a 16. Well, I don't want to go too much into the history. It's actually a very interesting one, but I just wanted to do a relatively brief update vid. But just to briefly recap, the Vz.58, if you haven't seen that video, check that out to get us up to date there. It was the service rifle for a number of years. There were various efforts to replace it, but they never went anywhere, so it remained in service until this gun came along. Now, the Bren here itself has a very interesting history. It dates back to the late 1990s, and a gentleman by the name of Fundarak, or at least that's what my speech says it. I doesn't speak Czech. Apologies. He was kind of a innovator in the field of modularity, polymers, so on and so forth. He did not work for CZ initially, but they hired him on board after a couple of their own projects failed. And he would work there for less than 2 years, but then unfortunately he would die prematurely. So other designers at CZ would take over, and that's where the original 805, initially known as the SA805, would come from. And we started to see early prototypes of these in 2006, and then they started to appear in trade fairs in Europe and elsewhere by 2008. 2009, the Czech Army finally became serious about adopting a new service rifle to replace the very aging Vz.58. In fact, the Vz.58 at that point had not been manufactured in 25 years. So even the newest guns were starting to look a little long in the tooth. Of course, they refurbished their guns and updated them, but I digress. 2009, they had military trials. It really came down to the CZ-805 Bren and the FN SCAR 16. And in the end, they selected the Bren. A lot of it had to do with the fact that it was a domestic design. Also, it was a little bit cheaper per unit, but more or less it went head-to-head with the SCAR. The military did want some changes, though. For example, they wanted to change the number of lugs on the bolt. They also wanted to add a reinforcing pin between the two halves of the lower. Long story short, after about half a dozen requests to make little changes, it delayed these going into production until 2011. At that time, the military started to receive their first guns, and after the first order, they placed a second in 2013, and by 2016 they had over 17,000 Brens in service. They had two primary versions, both in 5.56 NATO. They had the 805 A1 with the 14-inch barrel, as you see here. This was considered the rifle version. They also had the 805 A2 with an 11-inch barrel, which was considered the carbine version. But then we get into the Bren 2. The Bren 1, we'll call it, although that's not really its name, but just for simplicity's sake, was a good gun in the reliability department and durability, but it had some shortcomings and some, user, complaints and things they thought they could do better. So CZ began working on the Bren 2, initially known as the 806 project. Work began around 2014. By 15 we saw prototypes, and by late 2016 the Czech military received its first Bren 2s. It would receive around, I think it was around 1,500 or so at that time. Well, they worked out well, and they would continue to buy more into this day, 2019. For a list of all the differences, we have a video on the Bren 2 comparing it, so I don't want to repeat here today. So there are a lot of fundamental differences. The biggest ones, though, it's lighter weight. It's 1 pound lighter because of a shorter handguard, shorter gas piston in here. Also, they added some lightning cuts to the receiver. Another big one, we have a non-reciprocating charging handle now that can still be used as a forward assist, which is a great thing. We have an external bolt release latch now. And we feed from standard AR-15 M16 type magazines. Whereas with the original Bren 1, the military would issue it with its own mags here. Because this magwell is swappable. They did make an AR-15 magwell. In fact, this gun originally came with one, but I am a purist and I wanted original. So it uses its own mags, inspired greatly by the HK G36, which in turn are kind of inspired by AK mags, which goes all the way back to the LATA program of the 1980s. Again, there's a lot I could go into. I really enjoy these guns. They're very reliable. Jay and I have done a number of videos. We both own both of these guns, which, if we own a gun, both of us, it's good. So if we own two of a gun, then we both like it. It's just not something we could share. We both really enjoyed them. So what new? Why am I doing a video today? Well, both of these guns have a few updates. Let's talk about them. I put a B&T foregrip on it just because I had it laying around, and it fits well. It's a quick detach. I do have room kind of for a hand here or even back here, but I can use a foregrip. That's nice. But of course the big deal is the new shorter barrel. The carbine originally comes with a 16-inch barrel, and it's threaded half by 28. The military gun here has a 14-inch, and it's threaded 14 by 1 left hand, so standard AK. Obviously 14 inches below 16, yes? Even with the flash hider on, we're still under 16 inches. So what I did, I used a AK muzzle nut as a spacer, and now we're just over 16 inches from chamber to tip. I may eventually make a custom part that looks like this but bigger, but for now this will do, and it gets it to 16 and it's permanently attached. What's nice about that, I can now use a bayonet, and a friend just got me one of these out of the Czech Republic. This is the 805 bayonet that doubles as a tactical knife. It has a Tonto type blade. It's about 7.5 inches long. It's very rigid. We've got finger grooves here. We've got a small serrated edge here for cutting. It can be used as a wire cutter with the scabbard. Let me flip it over here. Much like a modern M9 or an AK. It has a sharpening stone made with diamond chip on it. And quite interestingly, when you get these bayonets, they come with an alternative crossguard and hilt. It has one screw here. Unscrew that. You can take this piece and this piece off, replace them with standard knife type ones, and this becomes a true fighting knife. Also, the grooves, you can swap the handguard to the other side. But right now it's in bayonet mode. The lug on this is very similar to AR-15, but just a little bit larger. One interesting thing I'd noticed, the ring on this is a little bit larger than the ring you would find on, say, an M9. To replace the barrel, you just use the provided wrench in the CZ kit that they issue with the guns. There are a total of 9 screws, 1, 2, 3, on the other side as well. Then on the bottom, actually on the Bren 1 though, you only need to take the side screws, so I guess there's 6, apologies. Bren 2 is a little different. So you remove 6 screws with a torque wrench that's provided. You can just hand tighten it. They have little lock washers to keep them in place. So pulling the barrel out is super easy. Takes a little time, but easy. And what's kind of neat, if you want to go to the knife base and crossguard, it uses the same exact torque wrench for the bayonet. So it uses the same tool, which is a great way to conserve on your kit. So yeah, I think I'm much appreciative to my friend who got me this bayonet. To be fair, I got him the 14-inch Bren 2, so kind of a reciprocity in favors. Everything else is standard. We have the typical iron sights, features. We have the folding adjustable shoulder stock. For more, like I said, you can check out our initial video. When I obtained that barrel, CZ USA also had some modern mag pouches. These each hold 2 of the Bren 1 mags. The strap, as you see, is adjustable. And the back is also adjustable and configurable. And they're only like $8 for brand new ones, so it's a pretty neat pouch, and it's very flexible because it has very generous pockets. So if you have like a G36 or something else that takes kind of bizarre larger mags, these pouches are pretty neat. So that's that. What about the Bren 2? This one is more or less how you saw it before, but I've made a couple of changes. But first I want to explain why I went with the 11-inch. So let's do a comparison of the different barrel lengths, and then we'll come back to the table. Here we have all 3 barrel lengths of CZ's Bren 2S, and all of these are in 5.56 NATO. They also offer 7.62 39. In the top we have the rifle length 14-inch barrel, 3-prong flash hider. We have a standard bayonet lug for the Czech Republic. The barrel is slightly thicker here I'm sure to give extra strength because it sticks out quite a ways. Then we have the 11-inch, the intermediate, the carbine version. The barrel's a little bit thinner past the gas block. No bayonet lug because there's just not room to support it. And then finally we have the 8-inch, the submachine gunner commando length, where the barrel just barely sticks out. They're able to do this with the Bren 2 where they were not with the Bren 805 1 or S1 because the gas system is 3 inches shorter. The receivers and all that are identical. Of course, the longer barrel and the bayonet lug does make the 14-inch a little heavier. The 11-inch is right in the middle weight-wise, and the 8-inch is amazingly lightweight. In the military, the 14-inch is the Bren 2A1. The 11-inch is the Bren 2A2. And while CZ does offer the 8-inch as a select fire, I could not officially find the designation for Bren 2A3, so I don't know. It's very possible the military, outside of maybe Special Forces, has not officially adopted this gun. Only 50 of each of these came in. CZ USA decided not to go with the 2S, and instead requested CZ Czech to make the 2MS. So yeah, side-by-side comparison. The only difference, each one is 3 inches shorter. Alrighty, welcome back, and this is take 2 recording the final segment. We had a very interesting technical problem, as in the SD card broke. I don't mean electronically, I mean physically. The little prongs broke, so we lost our little outro there. So you got me, guys, doing this at the last minute. But you saw the comparison of the different barrel lengths of the Bren 2 here. I explained why I kept the 11-inch, which is like the Bren 2A2, the carbine version, in current Czech military service. I'm sure the upcoming 2MS will be a great gun, but for military collectors like myself, Jay, and many, many others, we really wanted the 2S because this is as close to a military gun as we're likely to get. Even according to CZ USA, the MS, the 2MS, isn't quite as close. As you see, I've got this small doctor sight on this. It seems to go well with this gun. We have the iron sights, which are very similar to the ones on the original Bren, but whereas these you have to press the button to flip up, these you can actually pull up, although they lock and you have to press the button to fold them back down. As I showed you earlier, the flash hider is this style. It's a little more narrow, probably for an M9 bayonet. And we looked at the original flash hider here. These are the magazines that the 2S comes with. I have a question for anyone who might be in the know. Looking at pictures, it seems like the Czech military mags look very similar to these, but these are of course US made mags. I'm wondering, is the Czech Republic going to manufacture mags? Or are they just going to buy them from someone else who's already doing Stanag mags? It's an interesting thing. Speaking of, the mag pouch, because of how generous it is, actually very comfortably holds 3 mags instead of 2, being standard AR-15. And it's possible you might even be able to squeeze 4 in, but I wouldn't. It would be a very tight fit. And while I was at it, I grabbed the other pieces to the bayonet. Figured you might want to see them. This is the knife hilt. You see it looks just like the bayonet one, but without the things. It does have holes in the side. Those are for a cord. I was curious. Similarly here is the non-lanyard ringed, bayonet ringed crossguard, and it's very easy to change by just, taking that screw out. It's a relatively sharp blade too. Very nice bayonet, but I can understand why in a modern military they didn't want to spend the money on it. The original Bren 1 is still very much in Czech military service because they have over 17,000. But some units, special forces especially, other frontline units, are getting the Bren 2. There's at least a few thousand in Czech service now. The Slovakian military adopted the Bren in 2015, so it'll be interesting to see if they go with the Bren 2 or stick with the Bren 1. These guns were designed primarily for the Czech military, but CZ does make them available for export military customers. They also offer them for law enforcement purchase in the US of A. The 805 PS1 pistol and 805 S1 rifle were discontinued in 2018. The pistols were available since 2015 here, so 3 years. The rifles were available since 2016, so two years and some change. I don't know how many came in. Maybe one day someone will release a number. Maybe not. It may not be as large as you think. And as I said a minute ago, only 300 total of the 2S came in, counting both 7.62 and 5.56 calibers, and only 50 with the 11-inch barrel as you see here. But this also has a quick change barrel, or at least changeable barrel like the Bren 1 has the screws. So if you get one of these, you can change the barrel length as well as the caliber. And this is pretty much cutting edge of Czech military CZ technology. I would say categorically the Bren 2 is better than the Bren 1 when you compare pros and cons. However, that's not to say the Bren 1 doesn't have some things still in its favor. For one, it has a nicer trigger. For another, it has an interchangeable magwell unit. And the longer gas system and handguard, while they do add weight, it does give you more real estate for rails, and the extra weight does help with the felt recoil. This gun has no recoil, at least felt recoil. Whereas the Bren 2, the trigger I don't think is bad. I know Chris thinks it's pretty meh, but I actually think the Bren 2 has a nice trigger. It's just not as nice as the Bren 1. And the shorter handguard is great for weight savings, but it doesn't give as much real estate. And obviously the 14-inch version looks kind of crazy with such barrel sticking out, so aesthetically it may not be quite as appealing. Of course, we do have the bolt release, the non-reciprocating charging handle, but the magwell unit here is all one piece, although there is an insert to use the 7.62 mags, you would remove that insert. For the 5.56 AR mags, you need it. Like I said, it is probably a better gun, especially a Special Forces type gun. I just thought it was would be fun to do an update on these. Hope you enjoyed them. And if you haven't, check out our older video on the Vz.58. Also posted one back before Christmas on the Vz.52 and Vz.52 57 rifles, which predated even those. And going back even further, we did a video on the Czech Vz.24 Mauser. Maybe one day I'll throw all the Czech military service standard rifles out on the table, kind of old and new. Might be fun. If you have any questions or comments, as always, please post them below. And especially if you own a Bren or Bren 2, we'd love to hear about your gun, how you've customized it, and what your experience has been like. It's always great to get more user feedback, add to our data. Jay and I have had great luck out of our original Brens. He has the pistol. We both have the 11-inch pistol for the Bren 2, and though we haven't had it as long, obviously, so far, the first several hundred rounds have gone very, very smoothly through both of our guns. So hopefully 2019 will continue the trend, guys. If you could, like, share, and subscribe. And also, if you'd like to help support the channel, please check out the link to our Patreon page. This is Misha. And as always, we will catch you very soon next time.